previous season, where in these 1 hour races they had to measure, I think, fewer things. But now, obviously, out on the circuit, they're going to have to worry a lot about sort of their tyre wear as well, because if they manage to get sort of a dry line starting to form, they need to be careful of keeping their tyres nice and cool, and also having to focus on potentially what they do in the pit stops, if it's worth maybe taking fresher wet tyres or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly a lot to think about as the race goes on. Qualifying session has about 30 seconds left. It's a good time to shout out the championship sponsors as well. Thank you very much to Kame, to Medius, Keenan Eco Energy, AB Designs and Get Good Racing, who of course you'll have seen during the introduction there. They have a new sort of promo video for us to show off in this championship, which is great to have. Thanks again to James Bostock for sorting that out for us and sending it over. We had an interesting start to the season as well, didn't we, Ed, at Catalunya? Plenty to think about there with the new cars added in, obviously the Corvette and the Mustang, which we were both big fans of, but some new drivers into the fray as well, which really took us by surprise.
Yeah, it was great to see, obviously, some new faces and also the familiar rabble that we're used to here in the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship. And there was some really great storylines, weren't there, of drivers coming in there on their first attempt and securing victory. It was wonderful to see, as we have now the results from qualifying up on the screens.
Absolutely. Troy Dolinchek and Luke Lucchese will make up the front row of the grid, with Gianni Terhar and John Breitenbach making up row 2 in the Porsche. Tristan Di Nobrega next up, with Tristan Engelstad making it an all Tristan row 3 actually. Christopher Radloff next up in P7, with Luke King from 8th spot on the grid. Ryan Ottens next up in 9th. He had a bit of an unlucky time at Catalunya. He's got Stephen Donnelly next to him on row 5. Then it's Marcel Breitenbach with Paul Cowlishaw on the 6th row. Joe Shapara and Francois Brandet, he's going really well in the Evo class, 14th overall. Matthew Jones next up with Joe Glass alongside him. Nathan Crook then has Robin Noel Brown for company in 18th. Matthias Penteler down in 19th with Russell Jakes alongside him. Jack Wyborn is 21st with Graham Matthew on row 11 with him. Then it's Malo Telai, and we have Nick Stubb in 24th. We will get, it's TA, isn't it? We'll get his name right one day. Martin Kenyon next up with Simon Cheshire on row 13. Ati Nagel is in 27th with Danny Weir 28th. Alex Fretwell, the next car on the grid, with Hussein Saraka Desler in the top 30. Wesley Van Rens and John Ludbrook on row 16. Then it's Scott Kostrick and Rob Mackay, James Howarth and Chris Keenan on row 18. Still more. Niazi Oskanar is 37th with Bruno Silva behind. Then it's Alex Boniface and James Bostock rounding out the 40. Following them, I'm going to go through these a bit more quickly now because I'm aware of this warm-up lap. James Robinson, Robin Aston, Ian Cable, Sean Clark, Owen Seward, Robin Truswell, Gareth Newton and Dennis Collar, and typically only one more, and it's Matt Hoyland at the back end of the order for this race. But it's Troy Dolinchek starting from pole position here, Ed, and he is going to be definitely one to watch here. Troy's got a lot of talent and a lot of pace about him. I'm excited to see what he can make of this race at the very top of the order.
Yeah, he seems to have been, well, they're both in the dry and also now in the wet. It's going to be interesting, obviously, because of how strong he was at Barcelona, to see if that form continues over into a very different race, very different complexion to it, with the obviously changing weather element to proceedings. But it seems that nothing can stop Troy, not rain, nor wind, nor sleet, nor snow.
Absolutely not. Nothing can keep him back at all by the look of it. We've got Francois Brandet here in the Porsche. He had a great start to his championship at Catalunya, taking his first win. He told us that it was going to be a bit of a French domination in the different classes in the championship. He qualified here pretty high up in the order, actually. As you can see there, 14th overall. You get the different colours for the different classes next to their position. And it is Donnelly that was the highest placed driver in the Premier class, which is the sort of middle class in the field, so to speak. But as the field heads round the final corner now, Troy Dolinchek is going to get us underway. The timer will reset in the top left of your screen to an hour. Looks like Luke Lucchese is eager to get going. Looks like Troy's trying to catch him out here. He's also trying to catch out Jean Breitenbach just behind, but the pace car isn't even in yet. Almost looks like a Porsche Cup from this angle. It's mighty loud from down there. We get this lovely view up here in the grandstand. A couple of ghost cars in the background, it seems. That's the effects of the replay, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. But we hope you enjoy the show, as it's about to get underway here from behind the bridge. Any moment now, Troy will plant his right foot, Joe, and get us going. He's got Gianni Terhar ready to take aim as well from that second row of the grid. He's making them wait a while here. Very, very long wait here as they head down, and now as the camera changes, Troy Dolinczek gets his foot down, and round 3 of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship gets going here at Fuji. And as they head into turn 1 for the first time, hard on the brakes, everybody's trying to keep it nice and tame, aren't they? Alpha 1 Esports cars right together there. Ryan Otton's on the inside line, Francois Brandet trying not to do too much in terms of running a tighter line. They'll have to keep a wet line, won't they, here? Because, let's face it, you've got to just try and go finding the grip in these opening moments, haven't you, Ed? It's not easy, this.
It's so tricky, and it's on these opening laps where the tyres aren't quite up to temperature either, as we see a little bit of a moment up ahead, and that looks like it's Gianni Terha off the road there after such a promising start to his season, really adapting brilliantly to life in that elite class. All of a sudden, in the wet, finds himself all the way down now into 26th.
It's a beautiful view from on board the Porsche, but look at the understeer. Listen to the gearbox moaning its bag off through the left-hander. It's a horrible, horrible sound sometimes from these things, but don't you just love iRacing's wet weather? They have nailed it. It looks so, so cool from on board. You really get an idea of the drama of these things. It's truly, truly excellent. As they head towards the end of the first lap, there's more contact. That's the number 55 machine in there with him. That's Danny Weir. Oh, he's going to be feeling weary after that. As he gets tipped to the left-hand side of the circuit, he's trying to rejoin where he can, but he's right down at the back of the pack. But heading back towards the front, Marcel Breitenbach is involved in a bit of a scrap here. Oh, it looked to me there like Luke King has gone, yeah, he's gone off the circuit to the left-hand side, trying to get back on for the end of lap 1. Flipping heck, Ed, that's only 1 lap in the books here. Naughty, naughty stuff.
Yeah, very, very much there. You can see Troy Dolinczek, look at that lead he's already built up, 1.5 seconds to Luke Lucchese. Now, it is always easier being the lead car in the wet around here because you don't have the effect of the spray. You can pick your lines, but then you're also, the downside is you're the first car to come to every corner as the rain is coming down. So if you find a wet patch that catches you out, you're going to be the one to really meet it head on. All the other cars can see what you've done and try and sort of skirt around it. So he is a bit like a test guinea pig at the moment, but he seems to be very comfortable out in the lead of the races. We're coming now to Robin Noel Brown, beautiful orange Suma GP2 Porsche, second place in the Evo class, trying to chase down Francois Brandet just up ahead. And Francois, he's had a great time of things, hasn't he? Actually, both the Frenchmen at Catalonia having a great time. As I say that, because the commentator strikes instantly, and Francois finds himself dropping out of the lead of the Evo class.
Yeah, he had a spin there with Nick Stubb, I believe it was, involved with him. Really, really unfortunate stuff there, but again, it's just as easy as losing the back end all on your own in this weather and just having a drama with someone else getting caught up in it. There's Bruno Hi-Ho Silver away in the Ludcrook Racing machine, car 177. He was having a look down the inside of the BMW for just a moment there, which is James Robinson in the Glasstec Academy car. Look at the spray, you can't see a thing. Well, what you can see is Matt Hoyland going for a absolutely wild ride down into the bottom end of the circuit. Everyone else slamming on. How nobody else hit him there, I do not know. But that shows you just how easy it is to lose the back end of these cars as you go back down the hill. There's more battles going on here as Alex Boniface, easily one of the prettiest cars on the circuit. He's now trying to get round the tower block BMW of James Robinson. But this is exactly what we expected, Ed. It's all over the place to begin with, but wow, exciting stuff all the same.
That was a very dramatic moment there, wasn't it? You could see that Lamborghini was not playing ball whatsoever. Meanwhile, Marcel Breitenbach, a lovely livery there for the Barbecue Bread Racing driver, currently leading the way in the Premier class. He's got a little bit of a buffer, doesn't he, to Joe Sparrow in behind. Let's see if Joe Sparrow is out on the circuit, just coming through the shop now, out of turn 1. So he's got several cars in between himself and the Premier class leaders, Joe. He just needs to focus on keeping himself out of trouble. That seems to be the main thing for the drivers, is keeping it on the tarmac, because already a few drivers have been getting caught out. But now this is the phase where the tyres should be warmed up enough. They've been around for a couple of times. They should be a little bit more predictable.
Yeah, that's it. You get used to where the grip comes to you and goes away on the circuit, so it's easier the longer that you're on them. And even the wet tyres want a bit of temperature in them. You want to be cooling them down when the track starts to dry a little bit later. But I'm not sure it will be doing, because by the look of the weather, it's going to continue raining time and time again here at Fuji. It's Troy Dolinchek leading the race from Luke Lucchese and Jean Breitenbach in the elite class. In the Premiers, it is Breitenbach from Sparrow, from Donnelly. So Sparrow's got his teammate behind him as well. Robin Noel Brown did inherit that lead in the Evo class as well. Just behind them, actually, Martin Kenyon and Graham Matthew close together in the two Lambos. Good to see Martin Kenyon going well. Martin in the number 3 machine, the Spirit of Yorkshire Racing livery, always looking resplendent on his cars. He's raced in a number of our leagues. That was Graham Matthew going for a spin in the background there, actually. I think he's got caught up as well with Simon Cheshire. Simon Cheshire will not be wearing the grin of a Cheshire cat, that's for sure, as he now recovers. But it's really thrown the field into jeopardy, hasn't it? So many drivers in different classes, all amongst one another here, Ed.
It's just so tricky for the drivers at the moment. Just really getting to grips with the circuit while also having to fight amongst themselves. And I think that's why we're seeing a few more incidents than a lot of drivers were experiencing during practice and qualifying, because it's not just them out on the circuit anymore. It is pretty much just a bun fight out there, finding grip as they can. And all the drivers are essentially fighting for not just position, but also any sort of grip that they can find on circuit. Look at Simon Cheshire, how he was able to get it stopped by breaking off of the traditional racing line. There was someone going, I think, just plowing straight on, wasn't it, into turn 1.
Nick Stubb just losing it on the brakes there, but that's another thing. It's not just about how it gets out of the corner and putting the power down. It's about how you get the car stopped as well. It's easy to lock up the brakes in these GT3 cars, and before you know it, one axle wants to go in one direction and the other axle wants to go in the other. So you've got to really have your wits about you no matter what you're doing in these cars. An interesting start to the race though. There's so many of them tiptoeing around, but that's why we love wet weather racing, and iRacing really has done a solid job of it. As we said, Martin Kenyon was going well, and he's now parked on the apex. The Lamborghini looks wonderful, but he's had to try and get out of the way. Fair play. Moves out of the way pretty sharpish, considering. Let's have a look for some of the Corvettes and the Mustangs, Ed, because we've not got a huge amount of them in the field. This is Robin Truswell in the Vectar racing machine. Lovely looking car. He's right behind Matt Hoyland now, who's recovering after his earlier spin.
Yeah, I've got to say it. Big fan of the Vectar racing Corvette there. You can just see the cars working so brilliantly on Robin Truswell. I think we mentioned last time it was very reminiscent of the old sort of super touring Volvos.
Yes, it absolutely is. As Nick Stubb having another moment here. He's struggling with the wet weather here tonight by the look of it. He qualified a lot higher though. I think just trying to get to grips with it in the race, and having to compromise your racing line is so important in the race as well, because when you're in qualifying and you're on your own, you can run whatever line you want to run. You know, you can be comfortable in your own racing line, whereas in the race you have to make so many adjustments and so many changes to where you are on the circuit. It looked like Matt Hoyland was coming in the pit lane there. Yes, he absolutely is. He makes his way down. He'll rumble his way past in the Lamborghini Huracan. Plenty of standing water down there in the pits too. You've got to be so careful in there. Battle going on here. Rob Mackay and Niazi Oskinar in the K1 Esports machine. Niazi runs a little bit wide and then suddenly comes under attack from Simon Cheshire. So much going on. But this is what we love the championship for. We've always got something to look at. And to be fair, we very often look at this man at the front. He's just carrying on again. Great consistency from Troy Dolinchek.
Yeah, 4 seconds now, the margin between himself and his teammate Luke Lucchese. And Luke is no slouch. That just shows how fast Troy is at this moment in time. But Luke Lucchese, being as quick as he is, and was actually a season 4 champion last season. He's just sort of not really got any answer for him. And Troy almost seems quicker in the wet than how he is in the dry. And that's a scary thing.
I was going to say, that's absolutely terrifying, isn't it? The fact that he's even quicker when it comes to the wet conditions. Here's Joe Glass, currently behind Marcel Breitenbach. Marcel leading in the Premier class. So Joe just wanting to potentially get by for his own sanity here, so he doesn't have to fight against a Premier class driver. Joe actually does the broadcasting using the same software we do on SDK for the Evolution Sim Racing TCR series, which has started recently. Joe's getting to grips with the software and doing a great job of it as well. Solo broadcasting is definitely not easy, as we can tell you, and Joe is doing a good job of that. He's got good CSS experience as well, so he knows what he's looking at when it comes to the software. As Martin Kenyon has had another issue here. I think Ryan Ottens has had a drama somewhere as well, because Ryan has dropped a lot of time. Oh, there's a bit of debris here and there as well in the later parts of the lap, I should say. Not quite sure what happened there with Martin, but maybe a bit of contact as Bruno Silva having a bit of a moment there with one of the Lamborghinis. That's Graham Matthew, isn't it?
It is Graham Matthew, I think, just getting overtaken there by Silver. You can see just the amount of spray that gets kicked up as well. It makes it so difficult for the drivers to really pick their points and know exactly where to follow, because oftentimes you only really get the brake lights of the drivers ahead to inform you of what's going on essentially up ahead. And easily that can lead to tunnel vision, which just leads to more mistakes. Very different lines being taken there, as you can see, and it's well, the tighter line for Graham is quicker into the corner, but out the corner he's fighting to try and keep it on a straight line.
I love watching it though. Again, I have to tip my hat to iRacing for their amazing effort here in doing the doing what they have done with wet weather. Niazi Ozkinar, by the way, has inherited the lead in the Evo class. There's been a drama for Noel Brown, who has dropped away and lost his spot, as now Ozkinar decides to bin it as well. Now Chris Keenan's going to go through, and he's going to take the lead in the class. Nobody wants to win this race, especially not in the Evo category. A shout out again to the championship sponsors: Cam A Medias, Keenan Eco Energy, AB Designs and Get Good Racing. It's always a good time to do it when you've got one of the championship sponsors on your screen leading the class as well. Perfect marketing that is, gentlemen. But yeah, what a busy race this has been so far. Loads to look at, but yeah, iRacing's wet weather is just absolutely savage. That's the thing, they've gone for a realistic interpretation of it. You know, they've not dumbed it down. They've not gone, oh, let's make it more grippy so it's easier for everyone. They've gone, you wanted wet weather, it is wet weather, driving it. Like, yeah, you wanted this. That's the sort of stance they're taking. It's so difficult, and with the spray as well, you know, no matter what your graphics settings are on it, it's hard to see through it, so there's no benefit of changing your graphics settings really. And on other sims we know that it can sometimes be dumbed down and it can be made easier. I mean, on a set of Corsa Competizione, when you get the drying line on the circuit, it's just a pre-generated drying line. The racing line dries out naturally as, Alex Fretwell having a drama in the Ferrari. But what I was saying was, on iRacing, it's actually affected by where the cars are and when. You know, how many cars go over a certain part of the circuit and heat it up, and the heat of the tyres going through it. It's all dynamic and it's all calculated here on iRacing. It's taken them a long time to do it, but you can see why, can't you?
Yeah, and you can also see by the way the circuit is cambered as well. Obviously the higher areas of corners will have the water just naturally flow down, so they won't be quite as wet as those sort of more angled, and you find sort of pools forming at the apexes of corners as a result. And I think you can see a little bit of standing water on that corner just gone. You can see him kicking up a lot of sort of just water particulates flying up, can't you, as they sort of hit the apexes of a lot of these corners, because that's just naturally where the standing water pools essentially is. Who was that? Was that Nagel? I think stopped for a moment. Nagel's dropped all the way down, hasn't he?
Yes, Atsi Nagel has lost time, but Nick Stubb having a big send up the inside for a moment there, and I think he's got his teammate going past him there. It's that, yes, that's Malo TA. He was in a Martini branded livery last time round, if I remember rightly. He's changed that now and is running the Glasstech Academy colours. Oh, that sounded spicy, whatever that was. As Troy Dolinchek now puts a lap on. Is that Matt Hoyland? It is, in the Lamborghini. But yeah, that's another thing you mentioned very rightly there, Ed, is the fact that based on how much water is sat somewhere on the circuit, is how much spray gets kicked up. I was commentating on the Watkins Glen 6 hours just a couple of weekends ago, and it was amazing to watch from the blimp cam from distance as they flung the prototypes through the bus stop chicane one way then the other. You could see them smack the curbs and smack the puddles, and there was a humongous splash from underneath the car. It was really cool to see it, and it's great that iRacing even, you know, it simulates that as well. Shows you every dynamic angle of this wet weather that it can. We've got Dolinchek leading the race outright then Luke Lucchese, then John Breitenbach, Tristan Dinabrega and Tristan Engelstad, top 5 in the elite category. In the Premier category, it's Marcel Breitenbach having a fantastic drive in the Audi, Jack Wyborn second place, then Matthew Jones, Russell Jakes and Wesley Van Rens, although Chris Keenan has just taken the lead recently in the Evo class, and for some reason it's hopped them in front of them. Graham Matthew and Niazi Ozkinar second and third there, then Alex Boniface, who we haven't seen much of yet, and then Dennis Collar in 5th place. We'll show you the overall standings though, so you can get an idea of whereabouts everybody is. And more of the Premier class drivers have moved ahead of the Evo class guys now, Ed.
Yeah, they certainly have. I'm just looking as well at Breitenbach in the gap that he has. Still comfortable, isn't it, to Jack Wyborn. In fact, it's now over 10 seconds.
Yeah.
The gap. Marcel is really having a good time out there in the wet, it seems. Like, that Audi isn't too bad of a car to be in, and sometimes it is those mid-engine cars that have sort of a finely balanced weight to them, a little bit easier to drive in the wet because you can feel what the car is doing a little bit more intuitively than maybe a car with a big heavy engine at the front.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to put a lot more work into rotate the front end of a front engine car, so when you do overdo it, it's already carrying that pendulum weight to the apex of the corner and sometimes throwing it past it, so it's very difficult to come back from that. We're riding on board now with Marcel Breitenbach. You get a dose of the delightful 5.2 litre V10 in the Audi R8. This is the LMS Evo 2 version of the car, the later iteration. I recently got back into driving a little bit on iRacing. Now I've got my rig set back up again. I've got the trusty GT Omega out, and I was actually driving the old version of the Audi at the Nordschleife, remembering that it was a pig, and for some reason it feels lovely now. But the GT3 cars have all received a lot of great quality of life updates, so they move around a lot more. They're a lot more animated than they used to be. I'm sure from when we first started to race together, actually, Ed. I think you were with Fury Simsport at the time, and
of course, yeah.
We had I know, innit? We used to have the odd encounter on circuit before we knew each other properly, and back then the cars were either glued to the road or you'd have the tiniest slide in the world and you were dead. It was a nightmare, wasn't it?
It got the sort of unfair reputation, I think, of being known as ice racing.
Yes.
Where it was
yes.
just, you have all the grip and all of a sudden it was basically like you were driving on ice. You would have no feeling whatsoever. The cars would just slide and slide and slide forever, and there was nothing you could do about it. But now, obviously, iRacing, through various different iterations of the new tyre model, I think we're on the 8th generation, is it, of the new tyre model?
Something like either 8 or 478, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's the new tyre model.
Yes.
They've managed to get it all sorted out, and to be fair, the cars, especially in GT3, feel absolutely sublime, I have to say as well. The TCR cars and the GT4s, I think, are some of the best on the service as well.
Yeah, definitely. The GT4s in particular, I was driving as we covered an event at the Laguna Seca, the Californian 250 by SRM. We did that event recently and had a bit of a go in some of the GT4 cars ourselves in the wet, and it's just so much fun. It really is. They float around like mad, but even in the dry, the way that the tyre model works is just awesome. Marcel Breitenbach's had a drama here, and he's amongst a lot of these elite class drivers trying to defend for himself, as all of them try and battle around each other. There's contact there, sideways, sideways, sideways. Is he going to keep out of the barrier? No, there's a kiss with the wall. That was, I believe, Christopher Radloff in the Alpha 1 Esports car. Where is Jack Wyborn in all of this? He's still a few seconds back, but is Breitenbach damaged? Because he had a hit from the left rear and then a hit against the left front on the barrier. That was far from ideal. That naughty, naughty stuff.
I think he might have just gotten away with it, and if it is damaged, it probably is something he most likely be able to manage for quite some time. The car seems to be steering in a straight line. You can see the steering column there just on the left hand side. It appears to be all finely balanced, straight and narrow, but obviously doesn't tell us the full story of what that might have done to some of the aero devices on the front of the car, maybe the front split. It all looks obviously fine, as it should do, but again, sometimes on iRacing looks can be deceiving. Even though we are on sort of the new damage model, there can be a few hiccups with it.
Yeah, as is with online racing and sim racing, there's often a bit of a miscommunication between one simulator to the next, even when it comes to replay files as well. Got a good battle going on further back here, although actually I thought Hussein Sarakadezo had a proper moment off the circuit there, but just run wide for a second. He's got Rob Mackay and Simon Cheshire in there with him. Rob looking to the inside, Simon also wanting to follow that same line as they try and get by the Lamborghini. Scott Kostrick and Danny Weir have just swapped places as well down at turn 1. We're trying to keep up with everything that we can here on Chaz Draycott Media. This is a very, very busy race to do, and considering we don't have replays to that effect today, we're going to try and catch as much of it live as we can, everybody. But wow, in the wet, it certainly spices things up because every single corner is so much